attending the second monthly conference of dialogue with the president in Aswan. The conference is part of an initiative to hold monthly youth conferences, which was adopted at the first annual National Youth Conference in October. ACC fielded questions from the audience on a number of topics, including the persisting absence of indoor plumbing in most of Egypt's 4,500 villages, the impact of Ethiopia's Renaissance Dam on Egypt's share of Nile water, and the potential ramification U.S. President Donald Trump's stated intentions to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. President Sisi said that although Egyptians' concerns about the Ethiopian dam are legitimate, he assured that the issue is being dealt with in a good way and in accordance with the agreements reached between Cairo and Addis Ababa. He assured the audience that Egypt takes the issue seriously, saying the issue of Egypt's water supply is a matter of life and death. The two-day gathering brings together 1,300 youth from Upper Egyptian governorates and is being held in one of the city's hotels amid tight security measures. The meetings are attended by a number of MPs and ministers. The conference aims to tackle challenges facing Upper Egypt, including ways to develop the economy and tourism in the area. It is also focusing on social and political empowerment among young people. In his first public comments on Trump's campaign promise to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, the hopeful capital of any future Palestinian state, the president is delivering a message to the whole world, including the American and Israeli public, not to make the situation more complicated. President Sisi said a peaceful settlement for the Palestinians issue is key. On democratic economic development, the president also said that the government intends to raise the number of villages that have indoor plumbing from 10% of the country's villages to 40% by mid-2018.
Right, welcome back. And as I said at the very beginning, that many sessions took place throughout those 2 days. One of the sessions, or the first actually session, was a kind of a general one in which the president discussed with the youths who were attending the session and who are also participating in the conference many of their dreams, aspiration, question marks that they have been raising. The youths have been trying to open a kind of conversation, discussion on how they feel towards domestic, regional and global issues. Part of the discussions, of course, went on the domestic issues. They have been speaking about Ethiopian controversial dam, the Nile share or Egypt's Nile share, water threats, and how Egypt is dealing with this matter. Another issue was a global one in which they discussed the U.S. new elect President Trump's announcements during his election campaign of moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and the implication of that, and what's Egypt's position towards such an issue. They also moved to speak about some of the regional issues, including what is Egypt's position towards some of the regional conflicts that are taking place in the region. They also spoke about some of the domestic dreams of theirs and how they see Egypt, the developments in Egypt. The most important issue throughout this discussion, that transparency was a key matter in their discussion. And I mean here that the president was keen to listen to all the youth's aspiration, to their thoughts and to their ideologies, different ideologies, how they view matters. It was a kind of transparent discussion to how youths interact with the domestic, regional and international issues that they are that they see throughout different social media or through the media, and how they interact towards threats and challenges, particularly in the area. On the sidelines, of course, of the conference which is taking place in Aswan, our correspondent Nada Ibrahim held a beautiful interview with Minister of Solidarity, of Social Solidarity, Ghada Wali. To this interview, and then we'll come back for more discussion.
Joining me now, Dr. Ghada Wali, Minister of Social Solidarity. Dr. Ghada, thank you so much for joining us on Nile TV. And first of all, I want to know about the sessions that were taking place today on the second day of the conference, and what are the main topics of these sessions?
The session covered the different programs and the different projects that are implemented in Upper Egypt. In electricity, we have portrayed the big projects of electricity, generation and distribution of electricity. There was also a presentation on the large housing projects, social housing, housing for the poor, land assignments, and so on. There were also a presentation of the investment law and the investment programs, and another presentation by the Minister of Industry on the opportunities in industrialization and industrial zones in Upper Egypt.
Concerning the field of social solidarity, what are the projects that the ministry working on to Upper Egypt, in Upper Egypt?
There is a session that will take place at 1 o'clock, and the session is going to be portraying the programs of conditional cash transfer and the programs of school feeding programs, and also the programs of employment, employability and training.
What are the projects presented by the ministry to Upper Egypt?
School feeding programs in all schools in primary education, conditional cash transfers through the social units. We have 5,000 social workers working on that, and we have a program for capacity building and training.
Dr. Ghada Wali, thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome back, and another important session took place this morning, Saturday morning, and it was about initiatives submitted for small and medium enterprises. Also, the ministers were keen to address key issues and key important efforts in order to develop Upper Egypt in the proper way. The session was attended by Prime Minister Sharif Ismail, Minister of International Cooperation Sahar Nasser, Minister of Trade and Industry Tariq Qabil, Minister of Housing Mustafa Madbouli, and Minister of Electricity Mohammed Shaker. Many issues were discussed in this particular session. They spoke about some of the efforts exerted by the government in order to develop Upper Egypt. They spoke about employment in the area. They spoke about different projects for every minister. For an instance, the Minister of Social Solidarity spoke about projects intended for the area. She spoke about cash transfer projects. She spoke about employment programs. She spoke about school feeding programs. She spoke about capacity building and training projects. Also, Minister of Trade and Industry spoke of how to feed the area with industrial companies and industrial projects. They also spoke about the importance of this area in attracting investments, how to make it more of more attraction to investments. Also, they spoke of developing the industrial sector in this particular area and the economic challenges and the development process there. In this particular session, the President has given instructions for helping more the small and medium enterprises. He listened to the youth's proposals submitted to them about what their dreams of what they see as small and medium enterprises. He said that the government is keen on helping those youths fulfill their aspiration or go with their dreams to start such projects. He also said that the government is keen to participate with them in different projects, fund those projects, and he also gave his instructions for the government in order to listen and take those proposals and discuss them in the best way in order to put priorities for this area. Or for the projects submitted from those youths and priorities of those projects to be implemented. Also, on the sidelines of this session, our colleague and correspondent Nada Ibrahim held this interview with Minister of Electricity Mohammed Shakir, and he spoke on a number of issues, most importantly of how to provide this area with electricity in order to be able to be of more attraction to investments. Of course, we're speaking about how electricity is important for any investment attraction, but also for the daily life of people. Let's watch this interview.
Joining me now, Dr. Mohammed Shakir, Minister of Electricity. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us on Nile TV. First, I want to ask you about this session and your presentation during this session. What are the main topics?
Okay, I give a presentation about what has been done so far and what are in our plans for the future for the Upper Egypt. You know that the Upper Egypt is taking a great care from the government in order to attract investment in there, but investment means it needs to have a very stable and continuous supply of electric power. Without this, you cannot have investment. Accordingly, we put a very strict plan in order to improve the quality of services from whether the generation of electricity or transmission of electricity or the distribution of electricity. So I gave a presentation about what has been done during the last couple of years. Actually, we added, or let me say, by the year 2018, the amount of additions of the power generation in this area will be almost 3 times to what has been there before the 2014. It will be about 18,000 megawatt, while there was about 6,000 megawatt. In the same time, actually, we commissioned a construction of an extra high voltage transmission line of 500 kV, 500 kilovolt, with a length of exceeding about 1,000 kilometers. It is under construction now, and this will help to a great extent of the improving the quality of supply. The same applies to the distribution. Normally, the distribution companies was allocating between 100 million to 200 million per year. Actually, for the next 2 years, the two distribution companies serving the Upper Egypt are allocating 4.4 billion Egyptian pounds in order to improve the quality of supply to the normal consumer.
Yes. Concerning the upcoming projects of electricity in Upper Egypt, what are the projects implemented by the ministry to improve the Upper Egypt and Aswan governorate especially?
You know, we have an unified power grid. So whenever we put any power generation in the Upper Egypt, it can supply all the whole region. So definitely we have an Beni Suef power station. We have the South Halwan power station. We have the Asyut power station. And all of this, when you add all the power generation coming from this, it will add to a major contribution to the improvement of the power supply for the whole area.
Mohamed Shakir, Minister of Electricity, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, that was an interview made by our colleague Nada Ibrahim to the Minister of Electricity, in which he spoke about the government's keenness at large to develop the area, the projects they intend to really do throughout the upcoming 2 years in order to be an attraction for investments. He also spoke about the electricity, the Ministry of Electricity's plans and programs put in order to develop the grids of electricity and to raise the capacity of electricity in the area. He spoke about tripling the capacity of electricity in this area in order to be able to really cover the needs of what they aspire for the area of development. He also spoke about how the government is keen to allocate the money to fund such important infrastructure projects that will be of help to develop this area. And that was part of the discussions that went on through the second session. Also, Minister of International Cooperation, Saha Nasr, participated in this meeting, and Minister of Trade and Industry, as I said, participated in this meeting, and they both spoke of their programs and plans for developing industrial or the industrial areas, this particular area. Minister, or rather Prime Minister Sharif Ismail, also spoke about the government's plans, the overall plans for developing Upper Egypt, and he spoke of how keen Egypt or the government is to develop Upper Egypt. That has been of much concern to the authorities, and has been putting lots and lots of aspirations for this area. A third session also took place in the afternoon, and it was on political participation and municipal elections. And during this session also the President was keen to speak on different angles, particularly of the challenges that are facing Egypt and how the authorities are dealing with those challenges. Atop of them was the issue of terrorism and how Egypt has been trying to take a kind of integral strategy to be able to confront such a challenge that has become a global one, not just regional or not just Egypt that is facing such a threat. They also spoke of the obstacles and the real problems that are really facing the country, particularly on the economic area. And the President has been always keen to repeat and reiterate his words of the importance of unifying our stances in order to be able to confront our challenges together. That has been an important third session Of course, there are lots and lots of recommendations that we will be updating you throughout our panoramas and news that came out from this important conference. Always at the end of the previous two conferences, there were important recommendations that were taken after or at the end of each session, and those recommendations were always a matter of importance and a follow-up with by the President himself and of course the head of the government. This was a special addition to our important conference or youth interaction conference, or the National Youth Conference that has been taking place in Aswan. Before we end our episode, let's have a look of the Arab news that took place, because also we have lots and lots of developments that have been taking place throughout last week. Arab developments. Let's watch the most important headlines of the Arab news and we'll come back.
Upon the directives of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Rafah crossing will be opened on both sides from January 28th to 31st for the sake of the stranded people and to let humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. The Arab League on Wednesday condemned Israel's announcement of new settlements as a sign of contempt for the international community and an obstacle to peace. Israel approved on Tuesday 2,500 new homes in the occupied West Bank in a major expansion of settlements following the election of U.S. President Donald Trump. The move drew widespread international criticism. The settlements are seen as illegal under international law and major stumbling blocks to peace as they are built on land of the Palestinians that want for their own state. The head of the Cairo-based Arab League, Ahmed Abul Ghait, said in a statement that Tuesday's announcement confirms the Israeli government approach, which is full of contempt and defiance for the will of the international community. The UN Security Council discussed Israel's latest plan to expand Israeli settlements on Palestinian land, but the United States didn't make any comments, and the UN's most powerful body took no action. Sweden's UN ambassador, the current council president, told reporters after the closed-door meeting that this needs to be condemned, adding that other council members who spoke agreed. The meeting followed the Obama administration's stunning reversal last month, which allowed the Security Council to condemn Israel's settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem as a flagrant violation of international law. The U.S. previously vetoed council resolutions on settlements, but on this one is abstained. The Iraqi army abide by their victory this month in liberating the eastern half of Mosul from the Daesh terrorist group, is now pushing into the militants-held villages north of the city. An Iraqi officer said that troops from his 9th Division began advancing towards two villages just north of Mosul in the morning, and after a few hours they were liberated from Daesh terrorists. The push came after Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi earlier this week declared Mosul's eastern half to be completely free of Daesh terrorists. A US-led coalition and Iraq's own Air Force have been carrying out airstrikes in support of the military offensive. The UN estimates that some 750,000 civilians are trapped in Mosul's western sector, which remains under Daesh rule.
Right, welcome back. That was the headlines or the top Arab news that took place. Also, there was an important outcome of this week, which was Syria, or the Asitana talks that was organized by Russia and Turkey and attended by, for the first time, by President Bashar al-Assad and the opposition. However, during a week-long talks, they did not really, or they have not been able really to reach consensus on all of the points. So it was just a first step towards the Geneva Convention, or the Geneva Conference, which was supposed to be taking place on Tuesday, but it was postponed. the Geneva conference was really postponed. Another important big headline that is taking place during this week that will be officially inaugurated will be the African Union Summit, which is taking place in Addis Ababa. On the sidelines, our foreign minister is there attending this important conference and has been already holding many of the sidelines important meetings. Before we end our episode for the day, let's watch a recap to the most important economic news that took place during this week, the Arab economies and how they are developing. This would be our last part of this episode. Many thanks for watching. Next Saturday would be another Arab Affairs. Thank you. On the sidelines of the World Economic Forum held in Davos, Switzerland's Minister of International Cooperation, Sahar Nasr, met with Georgian Minister of Economy to discuss the meetings of the third session for the joint committee between the two countries, which will be held in May. Nasr has represented Egypt in a session on economic reforms for sustainable development. Addressing the session, Nasr said that Egypt has adopted a program for sustainable development focusing on low-income brackets. The minister noted that the program aims at creating new job opportunities, improving infrastructure, providing suitable housing, as well as medical and education services. The program also includes plans for expanding the use of renewable energy. According to the minister, the government is currently implementing measures of social protection to alleviate the effects of the economic reform program. The forum was attended by head of the forum and director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde. Saudi Minister of Energy, Industry and Mineral Resources said that Saudi Arabia will become a softer, more tolerant place as it reforms its oil-dependent economy. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Khalid Al-Falah said the changes will come under a plan launched last year to shift the economy of the world's biggest oil exporter into one led by the private sector. He told a panel discussion with two other Saudi ministers that while the plan calls for development of non-oil industries, small and medium enterprises, and a broader investment base, it also has what Falah called soft factors. Saudi's Vision 2030 plan calls for more sporting and cultural activities as well as a greater economic role for women. The discussion in the Swiss resort of Davos saw 3,000 members of the political and business elite that have gathered for the annual talks. After years of political deadlock, Lebanon finally has a new government. Now it needs a new economy. Lebanon is searching for new sources of growth, which fell from 8 to 9% to below 2% when Syria's civil war began in 2011. Beirut is working to start oil and gas exploration, offering support to technology startups and urging its vast diaspora to bring the brains and bank accounts home. The government, which started work in the new year after the country spent 2.5 years without a president, has an urgent to-do list. Top of Prime Minister Saad Hariri's list is a budget, which the country has not had since 2005, and a better environment for business. Without one, there will be little chance of tackling Lebanon's growing fiscal deficit and debt to GDP ratio forecast by the World Bank at 155% this year, the third highest in the world. It also plans to resolve problems with rubbish disposal, which spurred anti-government protests last year. The fate of Lebanon's economy is important not only for the livelihood of 4 million Lebanese, but for avoiding even more chaos in the Middle East.